3, 2, 1.
The SMITE Pro League here in Season 9, powered by our friends over at Prime Gaming. If you have an Amazon subscription, make the most of it by utilizing Prime Gaming to get all kinds of cool things. Any of the games that you saw there, or you can go up to the top right of your screen over here and click on that little crown up top and see all the cool things that you can get. There's cosmetics and all kinds of other games out there as well. Free games that come out to you monthly. Plus, down in the other corner, the lower, you can't see it because I have my laptop there, but the lower right corner, see that little subscribe button? You can subscribe to your favorite streamer with your with your Prime Gaming subscription out there. I almost said SMITE Prime out there. That's a shout out to Jithans there for any of those who remember that one. But thanks to our good friends over at Prime Gaming for being the sponsor here in Season 9 of the SPL. So make sure that you get the most out of your Prime Gaming subscription and membership out there with all the cool content and everything else that comes with it. But here in our triple header Sunday, it's J-Mac and Trelly joining me on the desk to talk about our third and final set, which will be the Oni Warriors up against the Tartarus Titans. But man, we've had a roller coaster of a day to start things out.
I'm surprised you didn't mention Rambouler, but you're right.
Oh yeah, you're right. How could I be so foolish? Get your Rambo Uller skin. You can get that with your Prime Gaming too.
There you go.
Thanks for the reminder.
Yeah, of course. But you're right to mention that this day has been a little bit crazy. We expected maybe the Leviathans. I mean, not the Leviathans. Let me go way back. We expected maybe the Valkyries to look a little bit better after their win over the Leviathans, and then the Jade Dragons look very solid. But that's not what we're here for, J-Mac. We're here for the Oni Warriors versus the Tartarus Titans, and by all means, these are two top-seeded teams. They should deliver.
Yeah, I mean, right now the Oni Warriors have moved themselves up into the top 4 spot, as you can see by our schedule as we take a look here. We started out our week earlier on. You can't see those sets on here, but we had 2-2-1 sets that happened over on Friday, and then we had a 2-1 with the Valkyries and Leviathans, Bolts and Scarabs 2-0, and then we've had 2-0s ever since that startup set yesterday with the Leviathans here. The Kings were able to find a 2-0 to start today. The Dragons with a pretty convincing 2-0 over the Leviathans as well. And now we get to the Tartarus Titans and the Oni Warriors to round things out here. I brought it up earlier, and I want to bring it again. I had to double-check myself to confirm, Charlie. But so far, this is now the 3rd week out of 4 that the Oni Warriors have been put on the final set of the week.
Right.
The first 2 times that they were there, once against the Kings, once against the Leviathans, they won both of those. Maybe we see that trend continue today here against the Titans.
I mean, we're going to see another team tied at 5-2 no matter what. The Tartarus Titans and the Oni Warriors, both 4-2 currently, with the Bolts and the Dragons sitting at that 5-2 spot. So this win very important, at least right now, if you want a little bit of seeding in your favor. But also, I mean, you got to want to win right now. Both 2-0s today. This one could certainly go to 3, though.
Yeah, this could be a very interesting matchup here, and I think the jungle matchup is one that we're going to take a look at here, because when Cuvo Fred can pop off here on the side of the Oni Warriors, this whole team is just an explosive domination across the map out here. Whether Cuvo is playing these more facilitator-style gods with these warriors, or going from one of these tried-and-true assassin-type plays, I mean, even like thinking back to some of his older Fenrir plays out here, Cuvo can make things really easy for the Warriors. And with the help of Nico over there into that solo lane, I mean, these two have really been able to command these games that they're winning.
Yeah, he can make it very easy for the Warriors, and he can make it very difficult for the Titans if he is able to show up. And I think you're right to highlight his just immense god pool. There's things that he's been around the block for a while. Cuvo Fred has been playing some pro Smite for years now, so you never know if he wants to go back to those picks like the Fenrir, like you mentioned, or Shiva, one of the newest characters in the game that is even available for play, and he still looks solid on those because he's been around the block and he knows how to command this jungle. He's able to rotate over, make sure to get Nika ahead. He can help out pretty much any one of those lanes. That's the benefit of this jungle role. You can impact your lead whenever you are able to find it, and you can go around the whole map and make sure that your whole laners are all sitting pretty in their lane. So Cuvo Fred, definitely a dominant player on this roster and able to make sure that the whole team just sort of gets that extra gold from him helping out.
Yeah, Cuvo and really the entirety of this Warriors draft has really stepped up, coming from Season 8 here into Season 9. Now, obviously, with all the players here in studio, they've had time to mesh together. They've had time to really work on that synergy. And they kind of struggled a little bit during the SPL qualifiers, and so we had some questions and maybe some doubts on this team, a few question marks as they were jumping into Phase 1 here in Season 9. But they have really shown up and improved. Nice little wave there. How's it going, Cuvo, Fred? You think he's hearing what we're saying?
I don't think so, but
Probably
he
not.
definitely knows we're looking at him, so I'll wave back.
He definitely knows. Hey, how's it going, Cuvo? But yeah, this Warriors team has really been able to step up and impress so far. They were able to take down, first off, former world championships in the Levi's, then also even being able to take down the Camelot Kings Provider, who were also on a hot streak going there. But we did sit down, or at least Mifflin. I can't even say sit. Mifflin maybe chased Vote down for an interview.
Yeah.
We don't know exactly. We'll go ahead and see what Mifflin and Vote had to say.
Welcome back to another episode of Mifflin Interviews, Guerrilla Interviews. Maybe we get some like fans to decide what that's going to be. I think I heard some rumblings that we've got some Oni Warriors in the building. And we've got exactly one natural-born killer, Vote. How you feeling, bud?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing all right, but this isn't about me. This is about you, the natural-born killer. And you know what? I think the fans need to know. What is the etymology? What is the origin story of Vote in Smite?
In SMITE.
In Smite.
It's a long story. You got time for this?
Yeah, we got time.
That's not actually that long, guys. Please. My brother showed my YouTube channel. They showed you how to play SMITE. I played SMITE. And here we are.
Who's the YouTuber?
Rooster Teeth.
All right. Did your brother play too?
Nah.
No. So like, is he like not even a gamer? Is he like the only gamer?
He games.
Okay.
But just different games.
Yeah. Doesn't game as good as you though. Like surely not. Surely not. Who is the best natural gamer in the Warriors house? Like which of you guys like could like load up into like I don't know like a Warzone lobby and just like pop off?
Okay, Warzone is me.
Okay.
I grew up playing COD. It's
Okay.
where my name comes from.
Oh really?
Yeah. MBK was the first title I got.
The first one.
The first title I got in COD was MBK.
That's awesome.
That's why I was at MBK.
That's super cool. What other games did you like play coming up?
Played FIFA, World of Warcraft. Just all like the normal stuff, I'd say.
Okay. So like before Smite, you would consider yourself a complete normie?
Yeah. Nah, I was a loser.
All right, Vote. Beef, chicken, and pork. You gotta get rid of 2.
Chicken and pork.
That's quick. That was super quick. You're not worried about like cholesterol or anything? Not at all.
Nah.
The natural-born killer does not concern himself with the lives of the families that he ruins. And also not cholesterol, it would seem. Thank you very much for your time.
Honestly, Charlie, I don't know what to say after that. Normally we can like pick something out of the interview, kind of talk about it. Normally we can find a little moment there, but I think Mifflin got it all out there. I think I'm not even going to say he said what we were all thinking, because I don't think anybody knows
No,
what we're
nobody
thinking
was thinking that. And Vote was like, it's a long story, and then it's like 3 sentences
Yeah, not
maybe. He was
even
just
that.
like,
It was like 2.
Yeah, it was a very short story. But Vote certainly is looking good on the Smite battleground. He's not the best, I guess, with his cholesterol, but he looks good in Smite.
And still wants to make sure to hold on to at least one of those 3 meets here. But going up against the Oni Warriors, to pivot back to some actual conversation here, they're going up against the Tartarus Titans. And the matchup in that jungle one specifically between Cuvo is going to be up against Layers here. And Layers and Paul, it's something in the last couple of sets that they've been playing, up until I think the most recent one, they were running this Shiva Zeus combo. And it was dominating, to say the very least. I mean, at one point I look up and it was like a 13-1 throughout the set between the 2 of them. And then teams realized maybe we should probably take the Zeus away. And so we're still seeing a little bit of the Shiva come out here from Layers, but not seeing the Shiva Zeus combo. I think that's kind of the big one out of that one, because that one was just so potent for this team. And you throw Yamoja in the mix, because why not just have Yamoja here? But this Titans team, when they find a draft that works for them, they find a draft that not only just works, but absolutely annihilates anything that stands in their path.
When Paul and Layers team up together as a duo, would they be called players?
Dang.
All right, well,
That's a good one.
I think we got the confirmation. We're going to call them players. When players are on point, the Tartarus Titan specifically, they all look so good. You're right to highlight the Shiva. Layers have been looking very solid on that pick. It's been banned away from him a few times now, just because it's very annoying in the early stages of the game. But we've also learned over time now that Shiva is able to bring a lot of healing towards that later stage of the game, so you don't even have that late game fall off. So been looking very dominant in that lane, but also sort of playing a pseudo support style jungle where he's able to heal up the squad, still find those aggressive plays and those pulls in, but also just sort of being the sustained guy for the whole squad.
I'm going to peel back the curtain in a moment. As soon as you made that joke, my laptop right here came up and asked for a restart on it because it just couldn't handle that joke anymore. It even needed a mental reset like we do sometimes over here. But for our pregame interview, instead of chasing down layers this time like Mifflin normally does with some of the players, we actually asked them to just walk in here into it a little bit more casually. First off, gotta say, I like the red kicks you got going on here. Really respect them.
Yeah, you got to fit the vibe of the Titans, you know. We're on fire, so got to get some fire kicks at the same time. So
you guys are on a pretty good hot streak so far. I mean, you had your spillover against the Bolts earlier on. Now you're going against the Warriors. Something I brought up with Trelly is so far when the Warriors are on these third-game sets on Sunday, they've been able to find a win. Are you going to be the guys to shut that one down?
yeah, I think we're looking for a 2-0 here. We're feeling confident. We're feeling good heading into this set, so we're thinking 2-0.
2-0 out here. Now, this little Zeus-Shiva combo has been working out real well for you guys. Do you imagine that they're ever going to let you try and get that God combo?
We'll see. I mean, I think they will, maybe. If they don't, then that's bad news for them. But
They might be
if they
trolling a
do, then
bit.
we have other things we can play. So
Okay.
I've kind of been on a Shiva streak, but you know, I love that character, so I got to keep it going.
Yeah, I mean, you've been playing it pretty well so far here in Season 9. It was a guy that we were kind of wondering where his place was going to fall into. Was it going to be that solo? Was it going to be jungle? So far between you, Kierme, we've been seeing a lot of success out in the jungle. A little bit of success in the solo lane. I think Nika played it at one point over there. And kind of talking about the Warriors matchup, who do you really see as kind of like that big person that you need to worry about on that team more than anyone?
I think Nika is probably their most consistent player. He did really well last year. I mean, last year they just had a lot of struggles because of the ping and all that, and they all weren't in North America at the time. But I think it's Nika for sure. Nika's definitely their most consistent player, I'd say.
All right, well, thanks so much for coming by for the interview. Good luck in your set, and maybe you can find that 2-0 that you were looking for.
Hey, thanks.
Hey, if you can find that 2-0, that'll keep up the streak that we've had so far today. 2 2-0s to kick off our day, and now maybe a third one here if Layers can get his wish.
Yeah, we'll see. So that's my jungler for my fantasy team, and he's got the drip. He matched the shoes with the jacket. Look good, feel good, play good. That's the mindset, and you're still right to highlight that Layers is going to be a commanding player for this team. I mean, having one of our, I mean, Paul's always in the conversation for the best mid laner in the world, Shinto, usually in the top of that conversation as well. But right now, I mean, whenever Layers and Paul are able to bounce off each other, I think that's when this team really looks solid.
I'm trying to think if I actually have any of these players on my fantasy team. I don't think that I do. Thinking about, like, right off the top of my head, I can't recall. I know that you've got 2 of the Titans.
I've got Cyclone Spin as well.
Right, yeah, you got Cyclone and you got Layers here. And then going up against the Warriors, I know that Mifflin has Nika there, and he's been getting a lot of points from Nika in that fantasy. That's where Mifflin's found the most success onto his one. Good solid pickup here, and with the way the Warriors have been looking, no surprise that this team is putting up some massive numbers in the fantasy league and putting up some massive numbers in the game itself. I mean, sitting up here in the top 4. I mean, this is a team that was battling with the Scarabs last time for that 6-7 seed, kind of as Phase 3 of Season 8 was going through. But now we're looking at a revitalized Warriors, a Warriors team that has been able to finally be together here in North America, to be able to play with each other all under one roof here in the studio now. And it has been able to evolve this team into what we have seen now. First being able to take down the Leviathans, next the Camelot Kings, and maybe the Tartarus Titans up here. But the Titans are definitely no team to scoff at. I mean, they were sitting at the top of the standings for a reason at one point, and then I got dethroned by the Bolts. We've had a lot of shakeups in our standings so far in these first few weeks.
Yeah, I would say the Oni Warriors, something important to note is even when they were in that 6th slot, even when they were sort of falling down in the last season, they always had that confidence. They always knew, you know, when we get together, when we're actually able to practice in one unit, we're going to be looking very strong, and that is what we've been seeing. Both of these teams, though, are both looking very strong right now. It's one of those things that right now it just depends on whichever team shows up, and we're going to have to see who shows up.
Yeah, we'll see here. Picks and bans for game number 1 between the Warriors and the Titans. SOT, by the way, that was the one that I forgot. He's the one that's on my fantasy. I don't know how I could forget that one.
Well, they're not going to let the players combo go through. We learned that pretty quickly.
Yeah, the player combo, the Paul's Zeus. I don't want to figure out a way to shorten that one. I'm gonna stop myself before I try and find a way to shorten that one. But also Paul's Hell will be taken away here. So the Warriors, even despite the fact that Layers is talking a lot about, you know, the consistency that Nika has had here, they're gonna make sure to at least keep Paul and Layers down over here for the Warriors. So now we'll see if that priority on the side of the Titans does go towards that soul lane. It will not. It'll be the Iset, Kleena, and a Muzen Cobb. So focusing a little bit more on that jungle, a little bit more towards that mid-roll as well.
Yeah, there is a few different things that could have been picked up there, but I think the AMC going to be a very strong band against both of these teams right now. But the Titans, not in first pick, not wanting to give that one away. Even though Paul likes it in that mid lane, we're not going to give Dardes the chance to play that. Obviously, taking that one away, smart pick, but that means you're going to get Nika on the RDO, which I don't know if that's a good trade-off because he looks pretty good on the bear.
Yeah, Artio kind of one of those very consistent picks that we've been seeing across the board here, especially one for Nika in that solo lane. So the Warriors will make sure to prioritize getting a strong frontliner for themselves. Now the question is, how does SOT respond? Typically, we've been seeing a lot more of the Cthulhu. That's kind of been the go-to. When one of those Guardians is taken away, the team usually gets the other one on the opposite side here. But the Titans are taking some time to figure out exactly what they want to go with here. And this Amusing Cobb kind of ban here, you know, a little bit of a shot thrown towards the mid laner of the Warriors. You know, Dart has been playing a lot of these Hunter mids as of recent times. I mean, even the Neath, you then throw in the Amusing Cobb, and a couple of other ones out here. I can even think back to like the On Her and whatnot of times past. So the Titans are just going to make sure that mid has to be maybe a little bit less volatile more than anything.
Yeah, I would say so. Making sure that Paul's comfortable in lane has to be on the forefront of your mind. You can wait to pick his character until the very end, but I mean, even listening into those Worlds comms long ago, Paul just said, like, just don't let me play against AMC, please, guys. Like, that's all he cared about, and it looks like it's still range true at this moment. But you're right to highlight the solo lane matchup. You already know you're up against an Artio, so what do you want? That Achilles is locked in, but that immediately does not scream to me solo just yet. We've seen Layers pilot it in the jungle, and we've seen SOT pilot it in the solo lane. So that, a solid flex pick, at least to lead off the draft with, and Yemoja just... I mean, it's Yemoja at this point, but that does leave one very strong pick that is usually banned away open, and that's going to be that Daji.
Wow, Daji making it through. A rare sight here in the SPL. She doesn't get through very often, but has been fairly successful at times that she has. Morgan going to be the next lock-in, so Dart is going to make sure to get another consistent mid lane pick for themselves. And that kind of then throws that wrench into the cogs here of the Titans team. Good lord. One day I'll learn how I can actually say things properly one day. But it will be the Habwa locked in now for the Tartarus Titans. We've seen a lot of flexibility with this god between jungle and mid on other teams, but the fact that this is Paul on this team, I'm going to imagine that this one's going to him.
It did go to him last time, and it didn't look that great, which is surprising because Paul's Hebo is a tale as old as time, right? Even when he was in the league for the very first time, his rookie season, everyone was like, this guy was, you know, wrecking me in duel and joust on Hebo and Ulu. Like, that's the only gods he can play. Not the case anymore. We've seen Paul's god pool, and we know how deep it can go and how, you know, versatile his picks can be. But more often than not, when this team is picking this character, that's usually where it goes. So it's going to be pretty easy to bully out, at least in the early stages of the game, but has a decent matchup into the Morgan. If you can hit that water spout right as she's transforming, usually you can cancel it out and ult her before she turns into a tankier target. But if you do turn into a tankier target and eat the crushing wave, it's not going to do that much damage. So there's a little bit of counter matchup intuity there, but they are going to ban away the Bacchus. Looking at that dual lane matchup, you're against Yemoja. Some of that anti-heal going to be annoying. And also Bacchus just brings a lot of early pressure, at least right now in this current meta.
Yeah, we'll say Jing Wei banned away, who's been a very hot topic so far here in this week specifically of SPL. With the 9.4 patch coming through, we've been seeing a lot more of this god and a lot less of the Medusas, the Cernunoses, those kinds of gods have seemingly fallen by the wayside here. And the Oni Warriors are going to take 2 shots over at Cyclone Spin by banning away the Chernobog alongside it and then a Kabrakan on the opposite end here. But if you're the Titans now and you see that Ardio's already locked in, there's a Morrigan on that side, do you just go ahead and throw this Achilles in solo for sake of not putting a Cthulhu there to give the enemy team a Cthulhu potentially?
Yeah, I think that's why the Oni Warriors didn't even opt to ban the Cthulhu, because number one, the Achilles could be solo, but if it's not, you just get a nice transformation for Dardes on the Morgan. So I don't think that you care too much about a Cthulhu if you're the Oni Warriors, but if you're the Titans, does it really round out your draft that much? At this point, you have a good amount of lockdown, but I think what you need is set up to make sure this Hebo is able to live and also be able to get these kills across. So the Cthulhu could do that, but right now they're going to go for the Charybdis. They just want, number one, safety in lane, some decent wave clear, with also a pretty solid team fight ultimate.
Looking down Cyclone's god pool over the last 6 games.
It's a god C, if you will.
I mean, he's played 6 different gods in 6 games, where previously, up until I think it was just the end of last week, he was only playing 2. And it's not because he could only play 2, it's because he only needed to play 2 here. And this will add another one to the list. So with Charybdis in, that'll now make a 7th god in 7 games for Cyclone Spin. But right now, the Warriors are looking at Ymir and Rom. Ymir did get a little bit of a buff recently, if I'm not mistaken, with that freeze, getting a little bit of extra help there. Rom with the rise up. Typically when we see crit come into the meta, that's when we see Rom really start to shine up here. But even just this attack speed build that we've been seeing out here, I mean, he can make real good utilization with that Silver Branch.
Yeah, Silver Branch, Odibo, anyone with an attack speed stem is going to look good. So in turn, Rama's going to look good. But Ymir, we saw Awesome Jake have a great performance on Ymir recently when these teams really can't get around the wall. Right now, a good portion of the Tartarus Titans draft cannot get away from the wall, so that could be quite annoying to deal with. But Osiris has no problem going through the wall, and we've seen SOT on this pick time and time again, so they could flip-flop, but to me, this looks like the Osiris in the solo lane, and Layers is going to take this Achilles into the jungle. Very solid early pick. You get into some extra movement speed with the armor up, and then you can really just wreak havoc in the early stages of the game.
Yeah, right now that we have a nice holistic look at both of these compositions here, Charlie, where for the Tartarus Titans do they find their success? What lane do they try and get that pressure, and that way they can find their win in game 1?
I mean, just get Paul to late game. That seems to be the name of the game. You are up against the Morgan, so you will have some avenues for your own late game in your own right, but everyone knows what happens when Hebo gets items online. Everyone knows the one-shot potential. Against the Daji, it's going to be hard to get to that point, but Paul, no stranger to the early game. I'm going to sit at my tower. I'm going to go like do more into defense, and I'm not going to leave this position for quite some time. So Hebo will eventually get online, and that's got to be the name of the game if you're the Titans.
Well, if you're the Oni Warriors now, you don't want to get to late game up against this Hubwa. So if you are this dodgy Morgan combo, I mean, that's a double Pow Lao available to you. That's also an extra emoji if you want to get some kind of defense out to there. If you're Dardes in this mid lane, you're looking, at Hubwa and then potentially Achilles or the Osiris. I mean, we can't dismiss the fact it could be either of those ones out here. I mean, how do you play this matchup here if you're Dardes?
I mean, you could always turn it into the Hebo if you want the crushing wave for a confirm. You could turn to Rama if you're trying to steal some objectives away from a distance. This is what the Morgan pick brings. It's the unknown. You don't know what she's going to transform into until the very last second. But if you need some safety, I think Daji always going to be the option. The Palau just so safe with a lot of setup as well. So you can always really count on Dardes to give you those interesting transformations. We've seen him even go into the Horuses, for movement. There's just so many things you can do there.
Charlie, are you surprised at all with how much Morgan that we've been seeing this week and as of recent times? I mean, to me, with all the changes that we got in 9.4, her specifically, this god didn't really get any kind of adjustments, and a lot of the items in her build also didn't really see much effect here. So is it any surprise that we're seeing more Morgan recently?
For me, the Morgan is not really about build so much or her kit. It's what of her transformations are in the meta. And Cthulhu is here, so the Morgan is here. You have the Kamazats was here for a while, and so the Morgan was also going to be able to find those. So as long as you have those key transformations, the Morgan's always going to look pretty solid.
Oni Warriors versus Tartarus Titans, our final set of the day and our first game of the set. We'll take it to Dolson and Mifflin.
And our final set of the phase as the Warriors and the Titans go toe-to-toe. Dolson, Doug, and who am I casting with?
Oh. No way, dude. Not again, bro.
Oh, we're doing it. We got to do it one more time, Miff, to end the phase. Warriors versus Titans. And Miff, what a treat that we get this far into the phase. Granted, this is a shorter phase from what we'll have later on in the year, just one round robin. And all of the games still matter. There's sometimes you get close to the end, and sometimes the standings are so fleshed out, granted, in those longer phases, where some of these late season matchups are more for pride than anything else. But this one also important if you're looking at top 4 and not having to play this upcoming weekend, guaranteeing yourself better seeding at Masters, those sorts of things. All that's on the line here.
Yeah, I actually got a chance to sit down with the Oni Warriors, and I talked to them about what this
An
set...
actual sit-down
Yeah,
or like
actual
a Mifflin
no,
sit-down?
No, not that one. I was standing around while they were talking. I was just eavesdropping. But essentially, they had said, if we win this set, that guarantees, I believe, the Jade Dragons for first seed, and it would bump the Oni Warriors to 3rd. If the Oni Warriors lose this set, they stay in 4th seed. So they're guaranteed for that top 4. But regardless of win or loss, I believe the Oni Warriors are matching up against the Olympus Bolts. So maybe a little bit more onus on the Tartarus Titans to find the win themselves. The Oni Warriors, a little bit less so.
And you just heard the Warriors say that?
Yes.
You're putting a lot of confidence
in their math, yeah.
Right. We're hoping they're correct. No, that does track. And the Tartarus Titans, Miff, like every other team that we've had here this phase, a team that has shown us some bright spots, a team that showed us why they were the runners-up at Worlds, not in that specific set, but the second best team in the world. Why they lost. Why they were the second best team in the world last year, and then there are some sets where they have stumbled. I truthfully, though, I cannot figure out the Oni Warriors. I cannot figure out this team. I guess they're really good now, and they're very talented.
Guess they're good now.
What?
That's just a funny sentence. I'm sorry.
But look, they were good at points last year, and I was just waiting, and I love that team, and I love all the guys on that team. And so I hope I don't sound harsh in saying this, but I was almost waiting for like the hat to drop. Like, all right, they're playing really well. When are we gonna get the old Oni Warriors back? And haven't quite seen it. And so I think pretty fun storylines for both of these teams so far this phase.
Yeah, I think so. The new age Oni Warriors might just be here to stay. I'm thinking Cubo Fred lines up against Layers. That's a lot of damage.
That is a lot of damage.
Is he
Layers
dead?
have his I mean, Dartes can rotate over.
Good pathing.
That is a nice stun from Layers. Has to go back. Cubo Fred boings forward. Mifflin physically recoiling at the damage that Cubo Fred just dealt to Layers. Dartes, though, being chased down by SOT. One more auto attack gets it done, and Sot has got it. Cubo Fred, though, reinitiates alongside Nika. We are scrapping in the mid lane, and Nika adds another, but Paul blinks forward, and we are stuck at a 2-for-2. And the Oni Warriors and the Titans, they fight out a little bit over in mid.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out who comes out ahead on that trade. It's essentially junglers for jungle, solo for mid there. I think maybe you're favoring the Tartarus Titans just because one of the kills lands on a Paul, and anything that speeds up this Havois is going to be massive for the Tartarus Titans, but that is just nearly a net wash. So let's be results oriented. Let's just look at the top of the screen. Who's got more gold? Oh, never mind. It's dead even.
Nice, Miff. That strategy didn't work.
Not even a little bit.
Didn't help. Well, look, I mean, that slight tick downwards is the first blood bounty, and then right back towards even. So as you would expect, a 2-for-2 trade doesn't result in much. Similar items in the mid lane as well, both going 2 more. Both get the tier 2 item before heading back to lane. Junglers also 2 tiers into their itemization as well. However, the jungler itemization a little bit different.
Curious.
Layers on the Achilles sticking in that mace tree. Cubo Fred, what, maybe a Transcendent, something like that, early on in this Daji build.
Yeah, Transcendence goes a long way for Daji. All of her abilities have got pretty decent scaling on them. You can move in towards that standard mace tree in the second slot, and then I wouldn't be surprised if maybe a Hydra's Lament is where we see that third pickup. But considering the pacing of both of these compositions, you would think that Cubo Fred would want to get involved a little bit earlier, want to put the pressure onto Paul, or maybe try and put some pressure on a Cyclone spin before he gets that second relic available, and then Charybdis becomes nearly unkillable because of all the resources she has. CC immunity in the ultimate, removing herself from the playfield in the third ability, and then also Beads and Aegis on top of that. But instead, if that is a Transcendence, and I believe it will be, Cubo Fred has essentially slowed down his first 8 or so levels. It's going to be a good while until that's fully stacked up. Whereas on the other end, Layers, playing the much more aggressive of the 2 junglers in the early game, falls down and falls behind.
Wow, Aurora had a Riptide down, but had to use the beads. He's going to
clean.
walk right into Vote on the other side of the Fury Pit.
So
River's
clean.
Rebuke is up, but there is no escape for Aurora. Who gets it? It's Cubo Fred. Though the snipes were there from Vote, I'll just pull out this purple buff, and a great rotation from the Oni Warriors.
That might have been one of the cleanest mechanical Ymir plays you'll ever see. The ice carpet with no setup, the ultimate just to apply the slow, separating Aurora from his Riptide, forcing out those beads. Mechanical mastery from Neil Ma, and it shows. That was just perfect.
Whoa, and it's not a jungle gank over to the solo lane. It is a mid lane gank, but becoming the jungler is Dartes, as the Daji transformation confirms the kill. And the Oni Warriors are just outpacing the Titans here in the first few minutes.
Red buff invade from the Tartarus Titans will go their way. Paul and Layers team up together. An actual Cubo Fred does not like his odds in that trade. Dartes at least able to pick up blue buff on the opposite side of the map, and now we're getting a better look at how some of these fights have started to round out in kills and gold and experience. The Oni Warriors slowly starting to pull themselves ahead. I'm thinking the majority of that experience gap is going to establish itself on the right side of the map. Nika starting to pull ahead there, getting some of those buff invades. Now, Cubo Fred spent some time in the jungle, has not been able to pick up that red buff, but will at least finish up that Transcendence.
Yep.
6 stacks already. It's going to be a while, but once he gets there, I mean, it's a worthwhile destination.
Well, if Cubo Fred keeps up this pace, he's going to have a hard time farming for the stacks because the Daji has been all over the place. Devourer's Gauntlet, as you'd expect, for both Cyclone Spin and Vote, and so some stacking to be done
He's
for
deep.
both of the Hunters. Neomon will separate himself
He's
from
dead.
Aurora with wall number 1. Got to be a kill here. Double freeze and ice carpet looks nice, but doesn't do much for you. And Neomon overextends, and a death for the obelisk. Gets what? Maybe 1 charge out of it.
I'm not even sure if he got
if
that.
he even got the 1 charge out of it. So that's just an overextension, plain and simple, by Neomon.
Yeah, curious. Not sure for any reason why he's up there at that portion of the game besides the Steel Flowers, but even then, Ymir, largely immobile, doesn't have the Gauntlet of Thieves stacked up, didn't even have his Relic available, so there was no escape plan. Neomon said, I want flowers, and that's where the thought ended. And
You ever
he
just
lost
bought
his
yourself
life.
some flowers, Myth?
No, I've actually never once in my life received flowers, except for prom. What are they called? The
Boutonniere.
No, like the Corsair? No, that's the
That's a ship.
Not a corset.
That's right.
No,
I'm telling you, it's a boutonniere.
no shot. It's called a boutonniere,
It's
man.
it's a boutonniere.
I would know that. Shut up. Shut up and cast.
It's a boutonniere. I was just asking. Myth, go ahead and drop your address and somebody can send you some flowers.
Please.
The Oni Warriors have been sending flowers to the grave sites of the Titans here in the first few minutes of this game. Paul yet to die, though, as the Habois has rotated out effectively and found a couple early kills. I wonder how this build starts
Corsage.
Yeah, wait, what? Corsage is the female one, though.
All right, well,
I think. I could be way wrong. Boutonniere's one of them, but it is Corsage. Okay.
I own so hard.
I'm gonna look it up. It's definitely. I'm right about something here, but I don't know what it is. I'm curious how Layers' build is gonna start to build out here, because you don't get to see Achilles jungle like hardly ever, if ever. So normally Achilles solo is what you get, able to build somewhat bruisery maybe out of the lane. Do wonder if Layers leans fully into damage later on in the build. Neomon ends up backing away. And we did receive word that I was right and not you.
No, you're twisting words.
Okay,
you
no,
know, let's.
You're right. We
Let
gotta
me
stick to it
focus
here.
up.
We still got an important game. We have no time for petty bickering, Myth.
Yeah.
What do you think Layers' build starts to look like?
I'm expecting.
What do you want it to look
Probably
like?
like a shifter shield, and then maybe, depending on the pace of the game, can either go towards dedicated defense if he wants to act as that frontliner for his team, but more likely, knowing Layers all the way back to his chaotic purpose days, probably going to look towards a couple more maces or some more dedicated damage, so we can finish off some of these priority targets.
Now it is a 2 versus 2, soon to be a 3 versus 2 over on left. Cubo Fred is going to be here way before anyone else of the Tartarus Titans. In
Cyclone.
goes Fred, and down goes Cyclone. Snipes from the sky are good, and Vote is getting all the kills, and Cubo Fred is just driving the pace of this game, but Paul has been there to answer. Now a few times in a row, it's a killing spree for Paul out of mid, and it's all been in reply to Oni Warriors' pressure. And when the Titans need him most, Paul is able to step up.
Yeah, Cubo Fred did not trust Vote to land all 3 shots. Should have, because Vote does. Had he trusted him, the Palau would have still been available and maybe could have put some pressure onto Paul. That's no beads on the Habois, so every time he uses Crushing Wave, he becomes very susceptible to the Palau from Cubo Fred. Blink in the first relic slot can help out with aggression, not so much with defense.
Freeze from Neil. That goes to Layers. Blue buff gets stolen away. It's gonna happen again. And Layers is the one who grabs it this time as Neoma, one more overextension. And that's giving just small lifelines to the Titans, because otherwise it doesn't feel like a 6-5 game right now. It feels like the Oni Warriors have been driving everything, and the Titans have a bit fallen by the wayside, but there have been enough answers back on the initiation of the Warriors that have kept the Titans very much in this game. And we thought the one early kill, Myth, was impactful for this Hebo. Now you got a killing spree going. Doomorb is there. Paul's going to be able to go back, finish up some flat pen here soon. Finds himself 500 gold or so behind Dardes, that being said. But Paul's still in a very strong spot.
He is, but still behind at the end of the day. So Dardes going to have a little bit more damage on the map. Paul has been more active, to be sure. He's been rotating towards these side lanes, getting involved in these engagements. I believe we've only really seen Dardes get active once so far, and that was over towards the Tartarus Titans blue buff. Since then, Dardes has just been farming up, and it is an entire level lead for the Morrigan. And a slight difference in the build. Doomorb immediately into the Divine Ruin. I believe we're going to see Spear of Desolation from Paul. We'll see it in just a moment. Spear of the Magus. I don't know anything about Smite.
The beginning was right. It was one of the spears. You knew it wasn't going to be Divine Ruin, and
of course not.
So you get some credit for that, Myth. Spear of the Magus. for Paul. And if he rotates through that combo, it's going to be effective. I think Cyclone Spin is in some serious trouble here.
Probably dead.
Watch out for a hi-rez proc. I don't know if it has procced yet. Vote always good on the snipes. Baits in Cyclone Spin, who's had a tough time over on the left side of the map. Powwow 1, good. Fatal Strike out, also good from Layers. And Cuvo Fred returns to left and strikes pay dirt once again.
Vote, low HP here, doesn't have anything to answer Aurora's ultimate. If Aurora could just reposition himself slightly, maybe could line it up. There it is.
Crushing Wave could make all the difference here on the back end of the fight. Paul doesn't need it, not just yet. Freeze down, and it's a double kill from Paul as Neilma has answered one as well. These two teams are brawling on the left side of the map. A little action between the solo laners earlier.
Is that Sot?
But
Why is he here?
yeah, SOT wants to get involved. He's tired of just farming up over on right. Now Lord of the Afterlife into Dardes, who transforms into the Daji. Use some of that extra move speed to get out. Knockup isn't there from Paul. Powwow goes down. Doesn't end up connecting on any of the chains. Uses the Aegis to avoid the damage from SOT. Dardes in and out of the stealth stun onto Sot. And Neilma and Nika will deal the last bit of damage.
Great
Neilma now a couple of kills, and the Warriors are able to answer the rotation of SOT.
Aurora's not out of dodge just yet, is now. That's the end of the chase
What is
there.
happening?
Dardes, great discipline, I suppose, to disengage there, fully away from the red buff, has not matched the rotations of Paul, and instead has continually looked to just further his own lead. Baits out SOT all the way from the soul lane over to the red buff and then into the back of his own tier 1 tower. The Oni Warriors able to regroup and take the team fight easily from there. But it has not been a clean match by any stretch for either of these teams. You don't get 16 kills in 13 minutes without a little bit of scrapping on the board. Paul still 5-0, has finally got those beads available to him. So CC immunity now finally an option for this Habois. Cubo Fred may have missed his opportunity, missed the boat on trying to shut down Paul throughout the early phases, but I suppose even in just having Blink, he is still Paul that is susceptible to the damage output of Dardes in particular. The combo of stun, Dark Omen, auto attack with Polynomicon once Dardes does get it could just remove Paul from the game if those beads are burnt, and you gotta think the beads will be burnt because there's a Powwow on one side and freezes.
And all of those have been hitting
and
so
Nika's
far.
roar.
Apparently everything's going to hit if you're the Oni Warriors today. It just feels that way. But again, you cannot count Paul out of this game despite over a 2,000 gold lead for the Oni Warriors at 5-0. Paul has put himself in a spot to impact this game. It's got to feel slightly bad, though, that at 5-0 compared to the 2-1 of Dardes, that Paul is still a bit behind, a few hundred gold and a level behind Dardes, as Dardes is just plugged away in the mid lane. Paul has been able to answer back some good gank pressure of the Oni Warriors. Wall and freeze, close, but no good for Neilma, as a purple buff invade was considered. But it looks like the teams, for the first time really this game, happy to just take a deep breath, back themselves away, and return to farming.
You know, I wasn't expecting this from Layers. He's actually going towards the hi-rez Lament himself in that third slot. That is going to give you a good deal more burst. I was also incorrect on the second item. Thought it was going to be the shifters. Instead, it's Berserker's Shield. So
And you thought it was Spirit Deso.
Yeah, I thought it was, okay, look, man, I'll correct me. Leave that to me. Tartarus Titans pull the gold. Now you talk about that.
I will talk about that, as they have dropped the River's Rebuke around it. Wall behind the Gold Fury. Walls drop down, and I thought that was going to be a steal from Dardes, but no, the Titans secure the big objective. Double freeze from Neilma as a stun connects onto SOT and Nika, both on the right side. Neil is simply walking for it. Oh, the wall is perfect. Stops the Riptide out, and the Riptide just faces mashing against the wall. And Dardes will assist on the kill onto Aurora. Snipes from Voda, all hitting onto the priority targets. Cubo Fred could make his way over this wall should he choose. Chooses not to. So the Titans grab themselves the Gold Fury. But the Oni Warriors are able to answer back with a kill onto Aurora. Feels like there should have been more there, though. That Riptide was just mashing the Titans right back into Neilma's wall. The Warriors just didn't quite have the damage.
The Warriors will have map advantage, though. Tier 1 mid tower falls down, as does the duo tower, so largely mitigated that gold advantage the Tartarus Titans had gotten for themselves by picking up the Gold Fury. And I gotta agree, man. It's a maxed out wall from Neilma. 2 people locked down for the entire duration, standing still stacked on top of each other, just no damage output behind him. And that's a byproduct of having a non-standard mage in mid. Dardes on the Morgan doesn't have the greatest damage output from a range and instead transforms into Cubo Fred and was at least able to finish off one of those kills. Good discipline, though, from actual Cubo Fred to not jump over that wall. Paul had maintained his ultimate throughout the entirety of that fight, and water spout into Crushing Wave is just a death sentence for everyone.
Neil has been playing lights out, despite a couple overextensions from the Ymir. Everything has been connecting for Neilma so far, and it's this wall right here. Boop. And you can read the panic. They can't get over to the other side of the wall either.
Good lord.
There's something that's just so comical about that. At least one of the kills ends up going through, and it's for Aurora, but Layers is able to survive and keeps himself at only 2 deaths here this game. The call was always disengaged from the Titans there, though. They had no interest in sticking around and fighting after securing the objective. Dardes tried to catch Layers off guard, but Layers enough wherewithal to keep himself backed away. Cubo Fred hits a pretty decent power spike here. Transcendence, of course, has been fully stacked. hi-rez and then a full buy Brawler's beat stick. And so the Daji, which has slowed down in pace a little bit, Myth, still, it finds the backline. Have to imagine it's going to go far away in one-shotting one of these carries.
Yeah, that anti-heal going to put in some work up against Aurora as well. This Yemoja not going to be as useful in these elongated dances around objectives. Not that we've seen one just yet. Both of these teams firing on all cylinders right now. And look at the positioning of the Oni Warriors. They have been on the Tartarus Titan side of the map for about a full minute now.
Yeah.
Gotta think they could fall back, maybe look towards the Fire Giant. I know it's a little bit early, but 18.5 minutes in, your composition is very good for DPSing the objective. Vote may not have gone towards crit, but doesn't necessarily need to, as you've got Cubo Fred on Daji, who is very good on these jungle bosses. So the Oni Warriors, if they are desperate for a fight, and considering their position, I think they are. They were sitting on a tier 2 tower for a good deal of time there. Maybe force the Tartarus Titans to approach you. Force them to leave their side of the map. And the only way to do that with both Pyromancer and Gold Fury dead right now is to group up on that Fire Giant.
Wow, and mid laner Smith, I keep looking at builds here. They're sticking with similar styles of builds outside of the Divine Ruin on one side and then Deso instead of Magus for Dardes. But looks like a little defense for the 4th item slot there outside of the starter items. Physical and magical, of course, for Dardes. And then same for Paul. So depending on where that lands, both mid laners going to be a little bit safer off. But Paul hits a pretty big power spike here with his 3rd item, completing that Obsidian Shard. And whether the Crushing Wave is landing on Nika, who's got a lot of magical protection to work through, or Neilma, I think Paul has got a really good build now for knocking down some of these big targets.
Yeah, this has been Paul's MO for a while. Neilma lines up against 4 in the jungle, trying to slow down that rotation as Cubo Fred gets active and left.
Dardes jumped on by Sod, but of course it's a double freeze from Neilma. Halal through as Dardes transforms into the Daji once again. Beads get used by Dardes, and another fantastic wall from Neilma. Vote will do the last bit of damage to Layers as Aurora and the rest of the team back their way beneath the tier 2 tower. Beads off of Aurora now, and the double Daji has just been melting Beads away. And I thought this fight was over, but Neilma had something else in mind. One more fantastic wall, add another, and the rest of the Oni Warriors walking themselves forward. Paul finally shut down. A brilliant stun onto 3 members of the Oni Warriors. Won't be enough just yet at turning this fight around, but SOT's got something else in mind.
SOT can't line up against Vote, though. He's got the full Tank Shredder build. Kinsai, Silverwrench, and Odysseus getting some AoE splash damage in that fight. Even Aurora falls low. Even Cyclone Spin not allowed to stand nearby when that amount of chainsaw damage is ringing true. The Oni Warriors, they make me eat my own words yet again. You don't need to group up on an objective if you can just take the team fight easily, and they do. The Tartarus Titans get nothing in return. Tier 2 tower in mid, 2 kills, and the Fury over to the Oni Warriors. I think they're here to stay, man. If you're waiting for the other shoe to drop,
I'm waiting, man.
Keep waiting.
I know. I keep sitting here wondering, like, what happened to the Oni Warriors of last year? You know, and this is a team. They will lose sets throughout the year. Any team is going to go through their struggles, but just the quality of play seems to have increased, and maintained for the Oni Warriors here as of late.
I think it really revolves around Cubo Fred primarily.
I
Cubo
agree.
Fred had a poor year last year, especially considering the pedigree
His
that
Worlds
he
run was
has
bad.
as a
Yep.
player.
Yep.
We have very high expectations of him. Back when Adapting was dominating the SPL, Cubo Fred was largely hailed as right behind him, and it wasn't that far. Like, he was right there with him. And then since then, has slowly petered. But now, in Season 9, we're looking at prime Cubo Fred again.
I mean, think about how a lot of this early game was driven as Pyromancer goes to the Oni Warriors. A lot of Cubo Fred starting things, and the Titans were forced to answer back. The Daji, the original Daji, has done so well for the Oni Warriors, not only in finding kills and finding setup, but taking some beads away. And then the second Daji that we've been seeing from Dardes, if not the one to initiate, has been able to finish off a lot of those sets of beads. I mean, look, there's 2 beads in sync for SOT and Layers on cooldown. Pretty close for Paul and Aurora as well. So you get the mindset that Daji, Palau, those sorts of things have done well in taking the beads away. As the Oni Warriors pull a 22-minute Fire Giant, and what a game state we have where the first Fire Giant of the game is not even looked at by the Tartarus Titans. Oni Warriors get it on all 5 easily, and now can look at the last 2 towers remaining on the map.
Slowly need to resustain themselves now. And I think Paul might be regretting going towards defense in that last slot. Defense only works if you can survive the initial ability rotation, and he is not at that portion just now. Instead, maybe a little bit extra damage could have served him very well. This blink that he's elected to pick up, have we seen it utilized too much? The combo should be blink forward, water spout, crushing wave, and crushing wave should hit at least 2 or 3.
Yep.
Have not seen that. It's been blink disengage, it's been crushing wave disengage. The player's struggling to find his damage output, has been forced to look towards a little bit more defense in his 4th slot. Even SOT, an incredibly tanky Osiris, especially with the damage mitigation you get from Tether, has been largely mitigated. We've seen him approach once or twice in the team fight, and both times he's walked into a wall named Vote. It has been the Oni Warriors all the way down, and now only 1 Tier 2 tower stands between the Order side team and the 3 exposed birds of the Tartarus Titans. And the Siege generally is where Morrigan compositions start to struggle unless they have transformations that are phenomenal in the team fight. Things like the Kamazods, the Cthulhu that Trelly had talked about on the desk. You don't exactly have that style of transformation here available. Dardes could continually try and turn into Cubo Fred and utilize the double pal out to make sure that one's burning
I wish I
beads
could
and
turn
one's
into Cubo Fred.
Yeah. Have you seen that guy?
Yeah. Have you seen his chairs?
And it is plural because he needs a lot. He breaks them.
You're right, though. The Daji transformation has been it for Dardes.
Yeah, I was on a roll. You derailed me.
You're right. That's entirely. I have been derailing you a lot today. I'm sorry. It has been a day for me, and that's my fault. As maybe one more fight here for the Oni Warriors could close out game number 1. Dardes in stealth. Who does the stun go to? No one right now. Phoenix melted.
Where'd he go?
But so is Cyclone Spin in the back. Hydra's proc. Serrated edge. All that penetration. Working wonders for the Oni Warriors. Cyclone Spin, he will fall. Layers will as well, and the Oni Warriors in an onslaught walk into the Titan room of the Titans themselves, and it looks like we'll stat pad a little bit and then close out game number 1.
Gotta highlight a micro play there as the Oni Warriors finish off the Titan. We saw first Palau connect with Paul. Paul utilizes beads, or didn't want to rather, wanted to walk forward and get aggressive, walks forward into a wall. Paul wanted to use Crushing Wave to go through the Oni Warriors and Immune Palau in the same breath, but Neilma removes that as a line of play with that phenomenal wall placement, and then the second Palau forces Paul to Crushing Wave the opposite direction towards his own base. The Oni Warriors, they're playing a different style of Smite right now. That was clean.
Yeah, Neilma's not looking like Fraudma in game 1 here, at least against
said that.
He says it himself. Neil is leaning.
He earned it. Okay, Neil can say it. You cannot.
Why can't I?
I can't
I'm buddies
explain
with
this
Neil.
to you right now.
I'm buddies with Neil. You know what? I'm going to go ask Neil right now while we take a break if I can call him Fraudma or not. Again, you can't after game 1. He's playing Ymir so well. The Oni Warriors take the first game of the set. We'll take a break while I go talk to Neil.
interview, Layers was calling for a 2-0 here for the Tartarus Titans, but so far, that's not starting out so hot here. The Oni Warriors are the ones with the hot hands in game number 1. They're able to systematically take down the Tartarus Titans and find a win in game number 1. A lot of that coming off the back of Cuvo Fred here, Trella. I mean, these Pal-Laos were so impactful. Darda's even getting a lot of transformations. And there was one point where you and I are looking up going, wait, whose Pal-Lao was that? And then we see a second one go, wait, whose one was that? I don't remember anymore. But, I mean, the Oni Warriors coming up big here in this first game to find their first win.
Yeah, I remember the exact conversation was, wait, Cuvo only has 2 kills? I thought he's been popping off more. And then I looked over at Darius. I'm like, oh, wait, there's 2 Dajis on this team, obviously. So we've been seeing a lot of early kills on this pick, as well as just a great late-game team fight, making sure that this Hebo was not able to free cast Neil with these walls. I mean, Myth was right to highlight on the cast. Some of these walls were so clutch, able to just stop the movement of the whole team, and just you can't play around that. You have to try and adhere to that play style. You need to try and walk through those walls, but you just can't. It was great play out of the Emir.
And Cuvo Fred really popping off across the map there. Also talking, if we want to talk about clutch walls out of Neil, that one by Purple Buff earlier on where he blocks off 2 people and then the Riptide that came out of Aurora just kept slamming them into the wall. Was just a great little play there by Neil. All these Warriors are really playing a different level of Smite right now compared to what we were accustomed to seeing them, at the tail end of Phase 3 and even coming in at the very beginning of these phases. I mean, this is a team that has really elevated their gameplay in just a short amount of time.
I mean, that's exactly what they've been doing. Elevating their gameplay, playing extremely clean Smite, very little room for error. And that's usually the sort of blanket statement that people say about, like, when SEC teams come to SPL, you can't make those mistakes because they'll be able to capitalize on them. Right now, the Oni Warriors are capitalizing on the smallest bit of mistakes from other top-level SPL teams. I mean, it is incredible what they're able to do. Not a very high damage game, but it was just, that's how clean the team fight was. They didn't have to last too long. They got their kills, and they got out. That's what they did.
Hey, a clean, flat 10K out of Cyclone Spin. That's the second time that we've now seen something like that come out here in CSPL. It's always just a fun little shout out there to damage and healing and mitigation numbers that look pretty clean, or just like astronomically high or something like that. I mean, but as we jump into game number 2 here, well, was there anything draft-wise out of Titans that maybe needs to swap around if you're going to be going against the Warriors? I mean, Warriors, obviously, they don't really need to change any of their composition. They can kind of run it back here, but if they do, what adaptations do you need to see out of the Titans?
Well, I think Layers on the Achilles really wasn't able to find that much success. Obviously, Paul on the Hebo sure got all those last hits, so we'll have to see what they are able to do. They have to change something up here, and the game's in their hands now.
Yeah, we will jump into picks and bans here. Game number 2 between the Titans and the Oni Warriors. Warriors now up 1-0 to start this set out. And the Titans' immediate response, a god that, for probably very good reason, has not been allowed through to very many teams here in the SPL, will get banned away. Daji, the first god out for the Titans, and then a Nemesis ban right after. So real respect thrown towards Cuvo Fred here by this Titan squad.
Yeah, I mean, we've said it time and time again. When Cuvo is on point, when he's able to find those early kills, the Oni Warriors can push small leads into massive ones. So they're going to take a few different shots there. Ardio going to be a smart ban as well. If you ever want kill potential in that solo lane, getting Nika off Ardio, probably a good option in their own regard. And Daji just, I mean, we can't harp on it enough how good the Daji looked last game, but there's a reason we rarely get to see that Daji just because of how strong she is, how much damage she has. First pick for the Titans, though, is going to be the E set, which we've seen flexed to so many roles right now. I'm not ready to put it into this is definitely going support or this is definitely going mid just yet, but a strong start nonetheless.
That gives the Oni Warriors a couple of picks here with the Ardio gone. Cthulhu, typically the next go-to Guardian for that solo lane. We have seen some other ones like Sobek or Xing Qian pop in the past via way of back with like the Kings a couple weeks ago. But Cthulhu kind of has been that dominant factor. Morgan is still up if Dardas wants to go back to that pick. I see no reason why not to. Or you can just go ahead and grab Shiva, give that one over to Cuvo Fred, or even to Nika. I mean, both these players had the capability, and I believe they've also had the moments to play it there. But how can I forget the fact that Yamoja was still left open, even with some of the sick plays that Aurora was able to make on that god last game. We'll see how Neil can pilot it this time around.
Yeah, I mean, you're right to highlight the fact that Nika still could take this Shiva, but how good Cuvo was looking on it, I have to imagine, at least for right now, it will be that jungle matchup, just because Cuvo Fred on this character has been looking super solid. We'll have to see if maybe as the draft rounds out, they do try to pivot that, but right now, that's where my money's on. And of course, Yamoja, time and time again, we've seen this pick go to support and just heal up the whole team, set up some great CC, but That will leave the Khepri open, and this time around the Titans are going to elect to grab that. A very strong level, I'd say 2 Uller fight with Khepri. The Abduct is going to be pretty solid to set up if you want to get some pressure in that lane. So looking over at the duo pressure is going to be pretty solid, but I think that means that the East side is leaning more towards that mid, but we could also see it in the jungle. I mean, we have seen it a few times, but right now, Khepri support, probably that East side in the mid lane.
Yeah, it seems to be the case here for the Titans, at least so far. Amusin caught the final pickup here by the Oni Warriors, a pick that got banned away from them in game number 1. But it's good to see it picked up here in game 2, most likely into Dartaz's hands. So that one can still go over to Vote in the duo lane, though with his lack of safety, with how long that lane is, might not want to put a less mobile god over there. As far as the bans are concerned, though, the Warriors take away Camazotz and Osiris, and then a Cthulhu Kabrakan ban out of the Tartarus Titans here. So a lot of shots over towards that solo jungle combo of a couple of these gods here, and then Cthulhu over for that solo lane.
Yeah, but Bologna was still left open, and Bologna, surprise, is still very strong in that solo lane. The build has not changed much. Pretty much just Death Toll into Berserker Shield, Frostbound into Shoguns, and you're able to run it, I'd say 90% of characters on the map right now. Bologna is still going to be extremely annoying. Right now, though, the AMC mid, I think Dartaz has been playing this very well, and I'm surprised that they were even able to give this one up because Paul likes it too. This time around, not going to be the option. I think they knew leaving this open that it probably would get drafted, so a strong answer back, and now the Titans still have to tell us what this draft is going to round off to. Is this going to be Paul on the set mid? Certainly could be. We know that Paul likes these mid laners that you can build a little bit tankier, and we're going to see Tyr. We're going to see the Lawbringer in the solo lane.
Shamash!
Maybe.
Bind my
Or maybe not. We'll see. We did see Gilgamesh solo earlier, but we haven't seen Tyr jungle in a very, very long time. So probably not going to see him there. Though there is still always that option. I miss the days of Tyr jungle. I'll just say it. I'll be honest. I miss watching the old days of SMITE with Tyr zooming through the jungle, and with that movement speed build that became kind of popular in the solo lane a while back. Would be fun to see. But with Tyr and Gilgamesh, a very bulky front line for the Tartarus Titans, some decent initiation, some decent peel, and then an Ola run to round things out for the Oni Warriors. And that is a pick that typically up against teams like the Solar Scarabs is a scary pick to go up against here. How do you feel about it for the Oni Warriors against this comp?
I like the Oleron here. I mean, they needed some magical damage. They only had Yamoja at the time, so I think it's going to bring a large amount of late-game presence, as well as one of, if not the definitive best team fight ultimate in the game with Sanctified Field. So I think they drafted themselves a pretty solid team fight. On the other side, though, I actually like the Tyr into Bologna matchup. You can stun out that Bludgeon with the knockup, and you can sort of dominate that lane, at least in the early portion. As long as Bologna is not able to just Scourge up and get as much healing as possible, that lane is going to go your way most of the time. It just really depends on how safe you're being, because if you are using Fearless to clear the wave, you could also subject yourself to a gank.
I'm honestly surprised we're probably not seeing nearly as much Tyr. With the rise of Bluestone, we saw King Arthur come out a little bit for Fine OK. I was kind of imagining that Tyr would also kind of make his rise up here at that item. He can abuse it very well for abilities after utilizing that stance switch to kind of get there. So maybe a little bit shocking that we haven't seen as much Tyr. But for this Titans draft, I mean, with this front line that they built, with the carries that they've given over to Paul and Cyclone, is this a composition that can take down what the Oni Warriors have been able to draft here in Game 2?
They don't have too many answers to Sanctified Field. Usually you like to see some CC immune ults that are still able, like Vamana comes to mind, right? Where you're able to just sort of immune the slow and just keep diving. Right now, though, not too many ways to deal with that. You still have Issa with some large range as well as the Uller. So poking Oleron from a distance could certainly be the option, but you're going to have to hold on to those beads. I think holding on to beads this game will be the name of the game, because if you're not able to hold on to those, that ult is going to ruin your day.
Well, if they're not able to really fight into the Sanctified Field, maybe fighting around it could be the call for the Titans here. If they can force that ultimate out there and kind of remove that team fight option, does that give the Titans a better chance of being able to punch back?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of strength right now in the Oleron's hands. When you're dropping that ult is very key, because if it's down, it has a very long cooldown. You can't waste that ability. You have to make sure you're making those ults extremely key in these team fights.
We'll see if the Warriors can make the most of this draft and find a 2-0, or can the Titans take us to game number 3?
Tartarus Titans need a big old turnaround based on what we saw in game number 1. Paul will be off the Hebo Myth, and that was something that the Titans really leaned into to get any type of momentum going in game 1, and it felt like Paul against the world at times. Didn't quite end up mattering a bit later on. Paul on the E set this time. Dartaz over on the AMC. But I really want to focus on this tier myth, something for SOT that because it's SOT, I have very high expectations for.
I am just a massive fan of Tyr. I feel like he is undervalued slightly. I know that there's like a lot of new ways to CC immune things in the game, things like cleanses from your ADCs, Chirons, the Hells of the world, tons of CC immune ultimates. But Fearless is such a strong displacement tool when it does work, and it's always going to force beads on its own, that I feel like Tyr is just blanket statement pretty strong. Also incredibly survivable. Maybe eats a pseudo value nerf in that DR has changed so much that CC's not as good against everybody anymore, but Tyr's passive still making him that you can't be CC'd for more than 1 second. Still very strong.
Alrighty, that happens. That's a chain CC onto Cuvo Fred, and the Tartarus Titans snag first blood. Somewhat simply, drop kick, Fearless, all of it working for the Tartarus Titans, and Cuvo Fred not able to match his early pacing from game one as the Titans grab first blood.
That's such an early death for the Shiva. Doesn't fall too far behind because he at least clears the wave before he dies. So Cuvo Fred maybe about a half level down right now on layers. Certainly not ideal, but able to fight back in nonetheless. SOT though, he's doing the most with the pressure he's been given already. Proxying out some waves, should be able to move into the jungle with layers now, strip away those back camps and put himself even further in the lead. And here's the thing about Tyr with the lead. Power Cleave has so much self-sustain on it that you're never winning a trade against this guy.
Hello. Cyclone Spin jumps forward. His vote has effectively traded out some damage over the left side of the map. Layers would love to keep the momentum going against Cuvo Fred here, but both of the Harpies will get taken by the Oni Warriors. I did talk to Neo, by the way. And,
I heard.
And what did he say? As Nika gonna get taken low here.
He's okay.
SOT. Yeah, he won't chase him down. But Cuvo Fred not okay. Layers jumps in, and the Titans jungler adds another kill. Cuvo Fred, a great performance in game one, and game two has been forgettable up to this point.
Yeah, we have officially hit famine status for this Shiva, man. Layers off to a 2-0 start, still maintaining that entire level lead. Cuvo Fred has not used his relic a single time so far. And generally, on Shiva, you're blinking like at level 2 because you're so strong at that point, but has been largely mitigated in his efficacy so far. Once he takes over to level 5, Cuvo Fred that is, will still have a good deal of damage output. We'll still have a window where he can get involved against maybe Cyclone Spin or Paul if he's able to close that gap. But as long as Layers is around, Layers is just going to be doing more. All that gold already adding up to a early Jotun's Wrath before he even gets level 5.
Yeah, Nika, or Cuvo Fred rather, has 800 gold in hand and hasn't gone back to base to buy anything. So yeah, there's a pretty big difference now.
Hasn't gone back to base of his own volition.
Of his own volition, right, to buy anything yet. Layers definitely ahead in that regard. There is scaling though, Myth, for the Oni Warriors that they can feel excited about. Vote has felt fine in this lane despite what was the threat of maybe some early pressure of the Ullr. Neoma has done a good job of keeping that lane afloat. So later on into this game, the Ullr run and the team fight changing style of that ultimate has to be something the Titans, regardless of a good start, are a bit worried about.
Yeah, I think there are 2 forms of CC in the, well, 3 forms of CC in the game that Tyr passive just straight up doesn't work against. Fear No Evil, because it is a constantly applying fear. All knockups, because you're just getting knocked up for that distance. But also Sanctified Field. SOT not going to get any value up against that ability from his passive because you're constantly being applied that time dilation effect while you're inside of the field itself. So Vote might be able to have some pretty decent matchups up against the Tartarus Titans, who have elected to go for only 1 set of beats in the early portion of this game. Tartarus Titans mid laner and support Paul and Aurora both picking up Shell. Going to help out a lot in the actual team fight, but as far as applied CC, once Cuvo Fred is allowed to get involved, or once Nika starts to rotate out, or Neoma starts to move in towards mid, might make it a little bit more difficult for Paul to survive some of these fights.
You know, every once in a while I forget about the Gilgamesh quest, and so I saw the tier 1 crit item, and I was thinking Layers was going into crit, and then, of course, he just walked around the map and picked it up. Here's what I would love. Just a random crit to, like, make the difference in a fight right now. Or later on if he ends up actually building into that item.
No way.
You don't think?
I mean, he might. I wouldn't. He might hold on to the shuriken itself because it's decent power, and it's probably worth just the 300 gold that he would get from selling it.
You don't get the crit yet.
Yeah, you don't get crit until on any item until it's completed. There used to be crit on tier 1s and tier 2s.
I just learned that.
Yeah.
On any item in the game?
They made a shift because people were getting really salty from
I thought
getting
it
crit
kicked
with
in
5%.
Oh, I'm just straight up wrong then. I thought it was the second tier of that item. I didn't realize it was
all tier 3s.
I guess I would be tilted by that. If
somebody walked out of base with a hidden dagger, it used to have 5% on it, and you would just lose a fight to that sometimes. It was awful.
Wow. All right, I've been living under a rock. No, I just never build crit, right? I'm a
you're
pure,
super honest.
right. You're saying people who build crit are dishonest.
I'm saying that one in 4 auto attacks might just make up for the 4 auto attacks they missed. Yeah, that's dishonest.
Or bad, depending on which way you want to look at it. Yeah, likely won't be seeing a full crit item for Layers at this point, Wind Demon or otherwise. But power and attack speed certainly helpful early on for the Gilgamesh. Cubo Fred dashes on away. As a silence out from Paul keeps things interesting. Cubo Fred wants to fight though, and that's good damage on the Layers. His Brawler's beat stick is completed on the Shiva, and now there's the Scarab's Blessing. Although Aurora will dash away, the root ineffective in Pio, and Tartarus gets the first kill of the game for the Oni Warriors. How about the drop kick from Layers? But it's not enough to disengage the fight. The Oni Warriors rotate through and swiftly find 2 kills. That is a lot of damage.
Whoa!
That I was not expecting. And SOT to cancel the back as Nika nearly adds a 3rd kill of the game.
Yeah, Layers gets re-involved in that fight, tries to chain CC off SOT's tier list. It does apply it. Puts Cubo Fred into a wall, but Cubo's not so far behind at this point anymore. Actually now in the lead at 0-2, 1 level up over his contemporary Layers in the jungle. That amount of damage, that amount of CC, not going to add up to a whole lot there. Surprised that we didn't see a whole lot of Paul in that fight. Circle Protection / Shell probably would have gone a good ways in making sure that Aurora was able to fully peel himself out of that situation. But a phenomenal Eagles rally from Nika makes sure that those kills do find their way home to the Oni Warriors, who have completely turned this game on its head.
Cyclone Spin throws an axe to Neoma. Needed to happen. Dodges out the initial stun. Unable to do so on the second iteration. River's Rebuke nearly confirms a kill on the Cyclone Spin. Fire the effort from Neil, and the good juke shoots from Cyclone Spin keep him alive and on the map. Unfortunately, Lair sells off the tier 1 Wind Demon, the Shuriken, and we won't be seeing crit on Gilgamesh at any point this game. Sticks with something a little bit more standard. Important for Cyclone Spin to stay alive there on the left side of the map. What you don't want is to make life easier for Vote in getting the wheels turning on this Olaron.
Yeah, you really want Cyclone Spin to be able to find some sort of pressure at this point. Once he finishes up the next item, likely a mace, that's when he can really start to look towards fighting Vote. But Vote already getting into that second ring. And tier 2 ring, by the way, might just be one of the strongest tier 2 items in the game. If memory serves, it's 55 power and 15% attack speed. That is an insane stat stick all on its own.
Are you taking that or tier 2 Abshard?
I'm taking that every single time.
Really?
Relative strength of an ability-based mage versus a auto-attack mage, I think you're getting a lot more than that 15%.
Nika ganked now by Layers. Drop kick in the wrong direction, and Nika heads back towards his tier 1 tower, and SOT just have to survive in this lane. Paul will have to survive here in mid. Stinger dropped and picked back up. Paul, the Scarab's Blessing. Cubo Fred would have loved to have delayed, but now it's an Oni Warrior setup, and that is gross from the Oni Warriors as Neoma pulls back into right into the Sanctified Field. The Layers now rejoining the fight. Cubo Fred low. It's all on his own here as the rest of the Oni Warriors on a weird route behind the red buff. There's still a chance to collapse in now if you're the Titans.
Yeah, I won't call the rest of the Oni Warriors pathing weird. If one guy's out of position, it's going to be him. Cubo Fred falls down. SOT over the wall may have just flown into his death. Nika picks that one up with ease.
That chain is long. Okay. I could. What a weird call. Just took me by surprise. Like it's like half the lane.
That's on me. I took the fight. You had to do the analysis. And when
Right.
Dave does the analysis,
My analysis is
that chain is long.
and it is, and I stand by it. Nika adds another kill at the end of the fight onto SOT. Look, again, the Titans had such a good start to this game, but it's this new, consistent, objective, and team fighting call style of play from the Oni Warriors that has just been working out, and it's gotten them right back in and ahead here in game number 2.
Yeah, the Oni Warriors just deathballing their way across the map. Every single fight they had taken at an even number situation, 2 versus 2, 3 versus 3, had gone to the Tartarus Titans. So when does it change? The Oni Warriors group up as 4 or 5 on the right-hand side and just wash through the Tartarus Titans jungle. It was back when Aurora got picked out and Paul was MIA in the fight. And since then, the Oni Warriors have been dominating the engagements, completely turned around. That gold advantage now completely in their favor, as is the experience. Cubo Fred, again, fell for first blood, walked to mid, died again, hadn't even got a tier 2 item by the time Layers had finished his entire first mace, Jotun's Wrath. And now we're talking about Cubo Fred 1 level up, or at least half a level. Still some XP disparity, maybe some disparity in the build. We'll see once Cubo Fred heads back to base whether or not that continues to separate, but it is a crazy turnaround for the Oni Warriors.
It is. The Oni Warriors will continue to push their lead, though. Around the Pyromancer, SOT was able to send the Oni Warriors right back. There's a Gold Fury on the left side of the map. That has not been confirmed yet, but enough ward coverage from the Oni Warriors to spot it out Layers and Aurora. I wonder if Dardes, rotates out of mid lane here. Could make this a 3 versus 3. Cyclone's been channeling the back, and it looks like everyone will silently pass one another. Head on back to base, buy up some of those items. Paul, no stranger to the early defense item here, Miff, and ESET is going to be no different. It's Divine Ruin followed up with a little bit of power, a little bit of defense in that second item slot before moving back into what could be Flat Pen, could be Obsidian Shard a little bit later on.
Yeah, Paul seems to be just a massive Aegis naysayer. Does not want that damage immunity for himself. Gold Fury pulled out and burning quick. Can the Titans get in there in time? No. The answer is simply no. The Oni Warriors, with a composition that is less suited for objective-based play, simply by nature of the Tartarus Titans having an E-set available to them, take the first objective, and they take it with no opposition. Answer on the opposite side. Can Layers do Pyro on his own? No, but with 2 other people around him, surely.
See if Pyromancer gets a kill at some point as Layers drops it. And Paul rotate over and help out. So at least Pyromancer goes to the Tartarus Titans. That gives them a bit of a foothold on the right side of the map, whereas on the left, the Oni Warriors are grouping up around the obelisk. Cyclone Spin and Aurora both able to disengage just fine. Meanwhile, will shred some of the flowers away, and a double engage as Aurora uses the Scarab's Blessing, and there's so much damage when the Stinger ends up connecting, and that requires a lot. Circle Protection, Shell, as well as Scarab's Blessing, all down. Though Sanctified Field also got used, as well as the Stinger. It's the Oni Warriors swing, but Tartarus Titans keep themselves on the map.
And after that small skirmish in the jungle, the Oni Warriors go back to exactly what they were doing beforehand. Maybe finding Paul here. He's got nothing left.
Nika doesn't have the range, surprisingly, given how long the chain is. Unable to finish off the kill onto Paul, and Paul sends a Spirit Ball. That connects onto Cubo
Triple
Fred.
Fearless.
Oh, the Fearless is huge! It's like a dream for SOT on his rotation out of solo lane, but there's
no,
it's a
no
nightmare.
justice.
Now it's a nightmare as the Tartarus Titans solo laner makes a massive play happen, but the Oni Warriors turn their eyes and shut him down immediately. And I agree, Miff, there is no justice in the world when SOT can make a play like that happen and the Titans are not able to capitalize.
Dude, I gotta imagine what's going through SOT's head there. He's like, oh, I got all 3, thinking to himself, GG, losers, and immediately gets turned
I'm sure
on.
that's what he was thinking.
Yeah, Neilma, I mean, separates the fight very well with his ultimate and does make sure that there isn't any follow-up for the Tartarus Titans there, and the Oni Warriors, they say, okay, well, if nobody else is going to be here, maybe we just turn our attention towards SOT, who falls down with ease. The Oni Warriors, their lead continues to grow.
Now, Miff, I wanted to say this, as the lead is pretty hefty, 3,000 gold, but 5,500 experience. Before Cyclone finishes up the hi-rez, I wanted to say this, and it almost makes no sense, but I'm going to say it now. I think the biggest individual item glow up is from the tier 2 Hydra little pronged fork thing to the full-on Hydra's
Oh, you're talking purely visuals?
Purely visuals.
Okay.
Look how
dude.
small and weak that. Yeah, look.
Don't laugh at it. He pointed and laughed, guys. That is ridiculous.
It's actually a really good tier 2 item.
It is super good.
Yeah, but then you buy a Hydra's and it's just so much better.
It goes from a tiny toothpick to a trident.
Right. So I think my biggest individual item glow up is the tier 2 Hydra's.
I've never once even thought of it. I couldn't.
For whatever reason, when the junglers were buying it in the first game,
you're thinking, wow, that looks weak.
Yeah. They finished it
You
off.
are ridiculous.
They finished it off before I could make the joke, and so I had to fit it in where I could, and so I'm glad I did. Some important tier 2 items are hit. I'm on it with the analysis in this game. the Bologna's chain is
so
super long. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Look at it. Tell me that that's not a glow.
No, you're right.
And the item just gets better, right? We'll see if the upgrade is enough to turn around this fight. The damage the Oni Warriors are outputting right now is gross. Aurora is a fully stacked Thebes and a Sovereignty in. It melts like butter under the eyes of the Oni Warriors. Cyclone Spin doing much the same. Vote has hit a power spike, and Paul learns the hard way. 2 down for the Titans as the Oni Warriors make a red buff fight worthwhile.
Man, it's that death ball strategy yet again. The Oni Warriors are always grouped up as 5. The Tartarus Titans are always trying to catch up, always trying to peel out for each other, but never once in the exact same place at the exact same time. And the Oni Warriors, with a numbers advantage in this style of composition, will continue to win out in these styles of trades. Tier 2 tower now taking some damage. The Tartarus Titans have got a 3 stack. That should be enough to dissuade the Oni Warriors from continuing their onslaught. But it won't stop Nika, who is on the opposite side of the map, taking down a tier 1. Primal Fury shouldn't be too far behind it. The Oni Warriors have got a little bit of time, could reset and try and fight into it yet again, or maybe try and pick it up before they head back to base. Not a whole lot of ultimates available to the Oni Warriors. It's just Nika's coming up shortly. Relics have largely been expended as well. No beads on Huvo, nothing for Neil Ma. The Tartarus Titans, well, their relics aren't looking much better, but the ultimates are. Aurora holds on to Scarab's Blessing. SOT not in the fight, will maintain his. Paul going to have Circle Protection very shortly, which could make this next objective fight interesting. But the longer the Oni Warriors wait to pull out the Primal, the more time it gives over to Pyromancer to respawn. So, if they wait long enough, maybe the Tartarus Titans can just split the uprights and take the other one.
That's what happens.
That's not what splitting the uprights is. That's
no, but
no, yeah.
split the objectives.
It was evocative, yeah.
Right. I mean, it gets the people going.
Yeah, it sure does.
It's Primal Fury be confirmed by the Oni Warriors,
so long.
And there's not an immediate pull on the Pyromancer just yet. And so the Titans won't be able to split the uprights on the objective this time unless later on they head on over to it. Yeah, I can't be throwing stones in this glass house. As Aurora is getting jumped on, uses the Scarab's Blessing on himself once again. That is a speedy Scarab. And a double stun actually might turn this fight around. Circle Protection pops, provides some good healing, but Cubo Fred has some healing of his own. Sanctified Field makes life very difficult for the 2 members of the Titans that were caught just outside layers. On the run now, and the Oni Warriors might immediately call FG. Layers can't contend. He's TKO'd. He's got to go back to base. The Oni Warriors should have an easy time confirming this objective.
Cyclone Spin's got a lot of range with Hail of Arrows. That's the full analysis. If there's a steal, it's going to be that. Cubo Fred simply will not allow it to be the case, though. Walks up as an iron wall, and Cyclone Spin has to respect the damage output of this Shiva. Fire Giant now on 4 members of the Oni Warriors. Only Nika not going to be benefiting from that, but Nika's got a good deal of sustain built into his kit. Generally when tanks get fire, it's more so about that HP 5, so they can eat up the tower shots and the Phoenix shots. So I think Nika going to be just fine in that regard. And, well, he's got healing from Neilma.
Dardes dodges the axe, Stinger connects, and my God. I expected Cyclone Spin to die there. I didn't expect it to be that quick. Oni Warriors knock down the Tartarus Titans ADC and now have eyes on the tier 2 tower over on the right side of the map. Nika and Layers brawling out over in the jungle as the objective shred is through. SOT, remember you can fearless somebody, so SOT not necessarily in an awkward spot. the Oni Warriors just continue their push. Why not when Cyclone Spin is dead for 25 seconds?
Roar down to 50%. Cubo Fred taking a lot of damage, though.
This could be it. This could be the fight that ends the set as Aurora backing away from the front line of this fight. Circle Protection delays things for a moment, but it is only a moment. SOT continuing to be obnoxious over on the left has pulled Nika over. Makes it a 4 versus 3. Frenzy used. And with Cyclone Spin back and respawning shortly, Oni Warriors happy with just the right side Phoenix.
Wins the Shamash down, Circle Protection down as well. Gotta think the Oni Warriors could keep up this aggression if they so choose. 2 tier 2 towers still standing, but plenty of gold left to spend up in their pockets. 3,300 in hand for Vote. That's a straight up Rada Tahuti now for the ADC, a magical ADC of the Oni Warriors. Gotta think it's gonna be a Nimble Rod transformation once he gets maybe a couple hundred more gold available to him. The Oni Warriors can essentially do no wrong, man. Both their backliners, Dardes and Vote, going undying so far. Cubo Fred feels like he hasn't fallen in what feels like 10 minutes now. Nika finally dies for the first time, but frontliners dying. Big whoop, who cares? The damage output has gone uncontested, whereas on the Tartarus Titans, everybody's died, and most of them a couple times.
Yeah, Aurora's had a tough set. Paul, an opposite game from how game 1 went, where even in a loss, Paul was at least putting up big damage numbers. The E set just hasn't quite hit its stride. Again, surprising. I thought the Titans had the tools to run away with the early game.
Agreed.
And it was anything but. And the fact that Cubo Fred, even at 1-3-9, not the most attractive KDA, but the fact that Cubo Fred has been able to turn this game around.
1-4-9.
Yes, you would think. Should be. The healing is nice.
Any second now.
Any moment now, Cubo Fred is going to die. It's the last heal.
No way, dude.
Please give him the double dash. All right, he's going to die, but he's delayed so much time that now the left side Phoenix is getting taken by the Oni Warriors. And so, Cubo Fred does die, 1-4-9. You're right, Myth.
Okay.
But the Oni Warriors send their FG buff to the left side of the map, and will take the most important Phoenix with 45 seconds left on the FG buff.
Yeah, now everybody can head back to base. Vote can pick up that Nimble Rod if he so chooses. Relic's coming back up. The Tartarus Titans just distracted by one Freddy boy in the center of the map. And the center of the map is all the Tartarus Titans have got left for them. Right side and left Phoenix have fallen. Tier 2 tower still stands strong, but not exactly a bastion of safety considering the gold disparity we're looking at, 12,000. By the way, this early on, 13,000 experience as well, and 22 minutes in, experience still matters, especially considering Aurora's level 12 and Paul's still level 17. That is a 5-level disparity between Neilma and Aurora. I don't think the Tartarus Titans can defend in neutral territory. I think they just got to allow this Oni Fury to go down. I think they need to allow the Fire Giant to fall, but we've seen the base defense, and it doesn't get much better.
No, it doesn't get much better. Tartarus Titans have felt outclassed. Now, in pretty much every moment of game 1, outside of some answers from Paul, and outside of the early game of this game, the Oni Warriors have simply had answers for every question that the Titans have asked. I don't know if at this point, Miff, the Fire Giant really becomes much of a question for the Tartarus Titans. I think you're so far behind that you're almost choosing, do we want to lose the game around the FG or do we want to lose it in our Titan room? You got Oni Fire minions pushing down the sides of the map. I'm not sure the Titans will have the timing or the area to move up into the Fire Giant to contest.
The will, the want, the capacity, they're lacking in a lot of regard, I think, when it comes to defending the Fire Giant proper, the Oni Warriors.
They're at tier 2 Hydras right now.
Yeah. The glow-up's coming, surely.
Surely at some point. They got to get the gold to make it happen. And it's going to take a while to get there. The Oni Warriors do pull out the FG, still far and away ahead of this game, and will remain there. And what could be a very fast day of SPL. And what could be a very good week of predictions for me. I mean, nobody predicted the...
Who asked?
I did, myself. Nobody predicted the Valks to upset the Leviathans. And so I'll give myself some credit there.
Did you actually?
No, nobody did. So, I'm not too hard on myself. SSOT is in the back line, but he is in the back line alone, and he will die in the back line alone. Sanctified field, it's got its value. The Oni Warriors came to play, and what a phase, what a turnaround this Oni Warriors team has had. The Tartarus Titans will fall 0-2 to the Oni Warriors, and the Warriors end the phase on a high note.
Man, the Tartarus Titans just they got folded like a lawn chair, man. That was convincing. Now it's time to split like a banana because of the shirt.
Because of the shirt and
Yeah, we'll see
not
in a
the
second.
uprights. Man, the Oni Warriors, what a turnaround this team has had. We've talked about that plenty this set, but you know, it's always surprising when the consistency starts to hit for a team in the way that it has for the Oni Warriors, because when I'm thinking of this roster joining together at the beginning of Season 8, this is what we were predicting would eventually happen, just taking over games, taking over sets. And I think Cubo Fred, as you talked about in Game 1, really at the forefront of a lot of this for the Oni Warriors. Neomaz playing some of his best Smite. There's an air of really enjoying the way things are going in general right now for the Oni Warriors. Cubo Fred just...
How could they not be?
Loves everything about Smite and playing the game. You know, it's a team that really feels like they've bought in.
They have, and they have been improving significantly. Even in this one microcosm of a game, when Cubo Fred was struggling, it was the only portion where I thought the Tartarus Titans were going to win. And then the second Cubo Fred gets the ball rolling for himself, the entire energy changes. The Oni Warriors start dominating.
That was a little existential there, man. This one small, tiny microcosm in the grand scheme of Season 9.
And the universe.
And then the universe and all of eternity. Myth and I are going to go ponder.
What does it matter?
Many-
Our orbs.
I'm going to go take care of Myth. We'll take a break. When we come back, the desk will take us home.
Three, two, one.
I kind of meant it as a joke when I was saying it earlier in the day, but it seems to ring true here. The Oni Warriors, when they get these last sets here on Sunday, they come out big in every single one of them. First the Leviathans, then the Kings, and now today, a 2-0 over the Tartarus Titans. And what a way to shake up the standings out here more than anything else. But these Oni Warriors, man, they're playing on a different level than what we saw even – I mean, let's rewind like 3 weeks back, Charlie, even 4 weeks if we want to go right to before this phase even kicked off. We looked at the Warriors team and went, we'll see how it goes this year. Maybe some question marks here. I think a lot of those question marks have been removed after this set and after the performance that the Warriors have had this first phase.
Yeah, their training arc is over. They have evolved to full anime protagonists at this point, and they are looking very solid. I mean, they touched on it a lot on the cast, but they have just been playing a level of Smite that we haven't seen in quite some time from really any squad, but they have just been looking so good as a unit. I mean, the clean play out of Cuvo. The one avenue that the Myth highlighted that was back in was this massive Fearless that just gets immediately shut down. So at that point, I mean, if you can't win the game off a triple Fearless, what can you do?
That just reminds me of the Worlds call where it's just like, he's a genius. Oh no, because it was like, man, that was a dream Fearless, and then SOT died and went from dream to an absolute nightmare in the blink of an eye here. But the Oni Warriors, with a massive win today, will keep themselves in that top 4 and should put themselves, if I'm not mistaken, up in that 2nd, even 3rd seed here. We'll see when all the standings kind of break out at the end of this one here. Dardes on this AMC. We see a reason why it got banned away in Game 1. We've been seeing a reason why it's been getting banned away from him in general. He is playing on another level on this god.
Can't be given Dardes AMC. I mean,
let him
you
get
should
away
be
with
given anyone AMC just because of the pressure in mid lane, but Dardes especially. It's odd because Paul likes this pick, but they didn't take it, and Dardes was extremely happy that he was able to pick that one up. 8-0 on the mid lane AMC. Picked up an Odibo just for some extra AoE damage. Just beautiful gameplay out of the mid laner. I mean, obviously Vote on the Oleron got extreme value. Those ults were clean. And then Neilma with the perfect support stat line that you love to see. 0-0 and 11. Didn't steal any of those kills. Just gave them away to his team.
That's a good support, given those kills over where they needed to be there. But I mean, just across the board, the Oni Warriors are really playing like a revitalized unit. You know, into phase 3 of last season, we were kind of looking at this team wondering, are there going to be any adjustments made? I mean, the team all just got here. They were starting to make some strides during the World's qualification stages. Not quite all there yet. Coming in here in phase number 1, we can see the improvement and just the coordination this team has been able to put together over the course of just these few short weeks of competitive play. I mean, obviously they had all their times with scrims, playing with all those kinds of players up until before, but this is a very impressive Warriors team. We'll get to talk to the solo laner, Nika, who's standing by for our post-game interview here. Nika, first off, congrats on the big 2-0 win today. You know, in the pregame, I asked layers, I said, how do you feel about this? I said, this will be good. This will be a 2-0 for our team, but it ends up being the reverse here. But how do you feel about your team as a whole so far this phase?
I mean, great. I think we've surpassed our own expectations for phase 1. I knew that we'd play better, but I think like all of us have put so much effort into reaching the levels we can reach, and I mean, nothing but proud of the phase.
Yeah, I mean, how do you kind of feel just in general right now? I know this is a tweet that PBM put out early on in the season saying this is the most competitive group that we've had so far in competitive Smite. You know, with any team could be a top team out here. I mean, how do you kind of feel about that statement in general with the league as a whole, too?
I mean, I think for the most part you can agree with it. Obviously, some teams still outperformed compared to others. I think it just comes down to consistency. Obviously, every player in the league is good enough. They're great. It's just whether you can like play consistently well as a team, and that's something we're able to do right now, which is great.
Yeah, that seems to be the buzzword that we keep hearing a lot with these, pre-game interviews and even some of the post ones. It's just that consistency across. Now, I asked Biggie this for the Kings. I'll ask you, since I know a lot of you guys play ping pong as well. Who's the best ping ponger on
Dardes.
Dardes?
Yeah, he's probably the best in the league.
Oh, best in the league. We might have to get an
Anyone
actual.
wants to challenge him, they'll be losing. That's a
we'll need
guarantee.
to organize a Smite Pong league sometime to see who actually comes out on top. Congrats on your win, Nika. I'll let you get back with the team to celebrate. Congrats on the 2-0.
Thank you.
So he's going to call Dardes as the best in the league. Not just the best on the team, best in the league. That's some confidence coming out of there.
That's high praise.
That's some very high praise. Considering the players that we've seen come through the studio and play here, that's a lot of pressure to throw on the Dardes. But hey, you said it. If anybody wants to challenge Dardes, you can here. Let's take a look at the schedule, though. It's been a rather short day today, but it's been a rather long week of matchups here between all of these teams. It started all the way back on Friday with the Bolts and the Titans. That was a 2-1 that went to the Bolts. The Titans were at least able to get one game during that, but finishing out a 1-4 record for the week. Oni Warriors finish out with a 4-1 for themselves after a win with the Scarabs and then the Titans today. Valkyries able to find their first franchise win, probably one of the biggest highlights of the week out there for that team. Leviathans struggling to find anything this time around. Only got a single game off of the Valkyries. Scarabs only able to find one game themselves here. Bolts looking hot. Warriors looking hot, Dragons looking hot. All these teams out here, man, every single week we bounce back and forth going, man, this team looks good, this team looks good. But now that we've gotten through our first full phase, we get to take a look at the standings just to see where everything finally lines out, where all these teams are. And your top 4 in phase number 1 of Season 9 has the Jade Dragons at the 1st seed, Bolt 2nd, and the Oni Warriors 3rd. I mean, Charlie, in Season 8, this is a team that was fighting for that 6th, 7th seed, and now all of a sudden this massive turnaround, this swing that the Warriors have made here in Season 9 has put them all the way to 3rd seed with the Titans right behind them. And maybe the most surprising, the Leviathan's down in 6th seed right now.
I mean, that certainly is surprising, but even during that play-in tournament, not the play-in, the one where you were trying to fight for that spot in the SPL, and they were the Oni homies at the time. They hadn't quite earned the name of the Oni Warriors once again. The phrasing was that they didn't even look like they were used to. I mean, they didn't look like they were up to par. Now, completely changed the game. They are looking extremely solid. We can't say it enough. They are playing completely clean Smite, and they look like they could beat anyone right now on their best days, and this is one of their best days. What we just saw, 2-0, the Tartarus Titans. I mean, that's not easy to do.
Yeah, so you saw the standings there, and that means that those top 4 teams will move on into a seeding tournament. That's going to take place next week on Saturday and Sunday. The top 4 teams will play for positioning into Masters and also first seeding as far as Phase 2 starts out there. We'll also be wrapping up the SCC this week. That's going to be starting over on Thursday. And then Wednesday, we're going to have the Camelot Kings over in the studio, so make sure you go and check out the Twitter, ask some questions over to them. But that's all that we've got for you today on behalf of myself, Charlie, Casters Production, everyone else behind the scene. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you at the seeding tournament.